Are immigrants responsible for lack of job opportunities for Native Canadians in Canada? Well, I think the most driving factor that plays a role in what kind of employees a company hires is the ethnic composition of the people dwelling in that city. As we all know, certain cities in Canada are far more multi ethnic, multiracial, and multicultural compared to other cities. More Indians in the city, more Indians in the workforce, more white population in the city, more white population in the workforce, more colored people in the city, more colored people in the workforce. I think it's that what's happening for the most part of it than our assumptions that companies are preferring hiring certain ethnicities over others. Hi everyone, this is Bilal Zafar and you're watching Honest Reviews Canada. Today we'll talk about whether in Canada immigrants have taken opportunities from the hands of the Native Canadians. When I say Native Canadians, I mean the white Canadians as well as the colored population, basically the people who were born in Canada and have been raised in Canada, have lived all their life in Canada. So there is a perception among certain people that with the influx of more and more immigrants in Canada, the opportunities have become very limited for the Native Canadians. People who were more entitled to those jobs that have been taken up by the immigrants. So, what is my take on this subject? What do I think whether immigrants have affected the availability of job opportunities to the Native Canadians or not? What have I observed in my year and a half duration of stay in Canada for the time that I have been in Canada? As a permanent resident, I will share my insights and observations on this topic. But before we delve any deeper into this topic, I request you to please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not till now. So, talking about the job opportunities, I have observed and think that people from certain ethnicities have certain preferences for the kind of jobs they want to do, and this has impacted the representation of different ethnicities in those jobs. Talking about Uber, for example, most of the times that I have used Uber, I have come across Desi drivers. When I say Desi, I mean the brown drivers, most of them being Indians, not even Pakistanis. And this can primarily be attributed to the fact that there are far more Indian immigrants in Canada than Pakistani immigrants. India being a much bigger country than Pakistan, as well as the trend of migrating and moving abroad and settling in the Western countries is observed more among the Indians than in Pakistanis, at least in my personal opinion. So that's why I think most of the Uber drivers that I have ever taken the services from have been Desi and Brown. I think it has just been one instance in which the driver was a white Canadian. Other than that, they have all been Desis. I'm not saying I'm for or against this, and I am also not saying that Uber has a preference for hiring people from a certain ethnicity. I'm just sharing my experience in this regard. Further to this, I would like to say that I have also seen many Indians working in the grocery stores as well as in the fast food restaurants. Um, I think that can be attributed to the fact that I have lived in a city that has a lot of immigrants in it. I think the ethnic composition of a city has a direct impact on the ethnic composition of the employees serving in the companies in those cities. Talking about Mississauga, Brampton, or Toronto, for example, we know there are far more Indian students and settlers in these cities as compared to cities like Saskatoon, Regina, or Edmonton. For all the reasons, there are all kinds of universities, colleges, as well as the already settled communities in those cities whose relatives come to Canada, whose friends come to Canada. They see that their relatives and friends have already settled in those cities, so they join them and eventually the communities grow, and accordingly the representations of people of a certain ethnicity grows in those cities. And I think to an extent it also makes sense for companies to then hire people from those ethnicities, because companies serve the needs and requirements of the clients and customers. For example, let's say if there is 70% Indian population in a city in Canada, just hypothetically speaking, be it any city, it makes sense for companies to hire at least 70% Indians in them, because at least 70% of the clients approaching those companies for their services will be Indians. They will be speaking Hindi or Urdu or Punjabi. And even if some customers know English, then there are their parents and grandparents or other people who are not so well versed in English, or even if they know English, it's their personal preference to speak in their native languages. So it makes sense for companies to then hire people from those ethnicities, because the clients and customers are accordingly from those ethnicities. And besides this, I think another factor that also plays a very important role in the increased representation of people of a certain ethnicity as compared to others in a certain company is that in Canada, the referral system works a lot. Many of the jobs are given to people who are related to or linked with the already working people in those companies. Many of the job opportunities are consumed even before they are advertised or marketed in the proper platforms, because the people working in those companies know that there's this void, there's this space being created, and they know certain people with the skill set, the knowledge base, and the educational and experience background that is required for those jobs. So before the job is even put out, people get hired just through word of mouth, because they were linked to those people. And especially since we are living in a day and age when many of the hiring much of the hiring happens over platforms like LinkedIn, where people are socially connected to each other and know people from their backgrounds and friends and social circles. So I think this referral system also has an important role to play when we see more of certain people in a certain company. So I think it's not the companies or brands preferring hiring people from a certain ethnicity or background. I think it's the ethnic composition of the cities as well as this referral system at work that is responsible in part for increased representation of colored people or brown people in some companies as compared to others. But honestly speaking, I have seen people of all ethnicities in different sectors. Talking about the HVAC sector, the refrigeration, the construction trades, especially the carpentry, the roofers, I have seen more of the native Canadians as compared to the immigrants or the brown population there. And when I say native Canadians, I mean the white Canadians as well as the colored Canadians, but people who have been born and raised in Canada. Most of the apprentices are also the native Canadians, white as well as colored. I see very less of Indian apprentices or Pakistani or Arabic apprentices in Canada. So I must say that when there are a lot of students, a lot of colleges, universities, and educational institutions, especially hiring foreign students, then we can accordingly see those students working in companies of those cities. So I don't think immigrants are entirely responsible for the lack of opportunities for the native population in Canada. I think opportunities are out there for everybody who strives enough to grab them, to attain them, and who has the educational background and skill set to avail those opportunities. So, I think every single time I have seen a grass cutter, it has been a native Canadian. Every single time I have seen a construction manager, it has been a native Canadian. But I don't mean that these professions or trades like the construction or HVAC or these kinds of trades, they have a certain preference for the native Canadians. It's just that it may be a matter of coincidence. Likewise, I have seen Indian as well as non-Indian and native doctors, but I think it's a good mix of Indian and non-Indian doctors, because this way, customers, especially the patients of all ethnic backgrounds, have their needs addressed. Because especially when we talk about the patients, and many of the patients are the parents of immigrants who are not very good at speaking English. So it always helps to find doctors serving them who can speak to them in their native languages. So that's my take on this subject. What do you think? Do you think immigrants have affected the availability of job opportunities and work for the native Canadians? What's your take on this subject? Do share your insights in the comments below. I think one very lovable thing about Canada is its multi-ethnic society and its welcoming attitude, not only to people based on their ethnicity, but also based on their orientations and educational and religious backgrounds. Like, everybody is welcome here. And this is the reason why I chose Canada as my home as well, and I became a permanent resident of Canada. Hope this helps clarify your doubts. What do you think? Please do share your insights in the comments below. I will see you in the next video with another interesting and exciting topic. Until then, take care and have a nice day. Bye.